Have you ever noticed how your emotions might be sabotaging you? Anger, fear, and guilt are not just fleeting feelings. They shape your health, relationships, and success. But what if I told you it's possible to change that, starting right now? In this video, we'll show you how to turn these emotions from enemies into powerful allies. So how are you feeling today? Let me know in the comments. Anger, fear, and guilt are like invisible anchors. When anger explodes, it often feels inevitable. It's an immediate impulse. Have you ever felt that? Like a pressure cooker without a valve? However, repressed anger is just as harmful as expressed anger. It becomes a silent poison, undermining both mental and physical health. The trick is to recognize this feeling the moment it arises and create mental space to analyze it before reacting. Have you ever tried counting to 10 before speaking? It may seem cliché, but it works. In today's video, aside from the main topics, I want to share something that made a difference for me. Recently, I started using CineBoost, which has helped me improve focus, energy, and even reduce daily anxiety. If you want to know more, check out the pinned comment. And the best part is, you only pay for shipping. Fear, on the other hand, is the master saboteur that the mind creates to keep us safe, but not necessarily happy. The fear of failure, for instance, is a classic that keeps many people stuck in the same place for years. Imagine someone who avoids a job promotion out of fear of not being able to handle the new responsibilities. You can train your mind to notice when fear is in control. One trick is to list the worst-case scenarios and then what could really happen. Usually, reality is much less frightening than imagined. Guilt is the silent executioner of emotions. It turns a mistake into perpetual suffering, preventing personal growth. Imagine someone who carries guilt from a bad decision for years without forgiving themselves. To overcome this, it's necessary to learn to acknowledge the mistake, seek to correct what's possible, and then genuinely forgive oneself. A practical example is directly apologizing to the person involved, or, if that's not possible, writing a letter to yourself expressing regret and the desire to improve. These self-limiting emotions are subtly intertwined in everyday life, making it difficult to perceive their full effects. A useful exercise is an emotional journal, noting daily moments when anger, fear, or guilt arose and how you reacted to them. This allows you to see patterns and start working on them strategically, preventing them from becoming insurmountable barriers. Furthermore, talking to someone you trust, without fear of judgment, can provide new insights into these emotions. Understanding that these feelings are not enemies, but signals of something deeper, allows you to use them as tools for self-awareness. Imagine seeing anger as a sign that something needs immediate attention, fear as a warning to prepare, and guilt as an invitation to correct. This changes your perspective and allows for a healthier relationship with emotions. The key is conscious recognition of each one, not elimination. After all, emotions are part of the human journey. The best part of identifying and dealing with these emotions is the gain of freedom. It's not about becoming immune to anger, fear, or guilt, but about mastering them so they no longer limit you. Imagine an athlete who feels fear before a competition, but uses it to sharpen focus instead of freezing up. This is true emotional freedom, to feel, understand, and move forward. Understanding these emotions is the first step in making space for something more powerful, as we'll see next. How anger impacts not just the mind, but the body in deep and surprising ways. Anger doesn't just burn inside, it also affects the body in alarming ways. Have you ever heard of people who lose their vision momentarily during an outburst of anger? Or even extreme cases of heart attacks? That's right. Anger can be as dangerous to the body as it is to the mind. The difference is that the body can't hide the damage: increased blood pressure, muscle tension, and even digestive problems. Conscious observation of anger when it arises can be the key to avoiding these damages. An example? Take 3 deep breaths before responding to a provocation. The practice of observing anger without immediately reacting is like a self-control workout. Imagine a fighter who, instead of attacking, waits for the right moment to act. That's what it means to observe without reacting. You can start with small, day-to-day situations. When dealing with an irritating colleague, for instance, adopt a more strategic and less impulsive stance. Think of anger as a spark that can either be quickly extinguished or turned into a raging fire. The impact of anger on the heart is one of the most concerning. Research shows that extreme anger can cause damage similar to a heart attack. This is because the body releases large amounts of adrenaline, preparing for a fight-or-flight response that often doesn't happen. This surge can be fatal if not controlled. To reduce the risk, techniques like mindfulness and meditation are highly effective, allowing the mind to slow down and the heart rate to stabilize more quickly. Vision can also be affected, with episodes of blurred vision or even temporary blindness during intense anger. This happens because the blood vessels in the eyes constrict under pressure. Ever been so angry that you saw red? That expression isn't just a figure of speech, it's a physiological reality. To avoid reaching that point, it's important to recognize the body's signals, such as an increased pulse and facial heat, before anger takes over. In addition to the immediate effects, continuous anger can lead to chronic problems like migraines, digestive issues, and insomnia. This happens because the body remains in a constant state of alert, which impairs the functioning of vital organs and the immune system. People who suffer from constant anger can greatly benefit from regular physical activity, like running, swimming, or even martial arts, as a way to release accumulated energy in a healthy and productive manner. Of course, it's not always easy to control anger in the heat of the moment. However, adopting a more observational point of view, almost like being a spectator of yourself, can help. A practical example? Try using an anger diary. Write down all the moments when you felt angry, what triggered it, and how you reacted. This not only helps identify patterns, but also creates more effective strategies for handling future situations. Understanding the physical effects of anger is just one part of the process. Once you understand how the body reacts to anger, it's possible to train the mind to act differently, as we'll see in the next topic, which addresses training to overcome dysfunctional emotions. Mental training to overcome dysfunctional emotions is a true art. Imagine someone who can remain calm amidst chaos. That's not just talent, it's the result of practice. The mind is like a muscle, and just like an athlete trains daily, emotional control also requires discipline. Deep breathing techniques, for example, are a great starting point. A practical tip is the 4-7-8 breathing method. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. It may seem simple, but it works wonders to calm the mind. Observing emotions from an external perspective is another essential component of this training. Instead of identifying completely with anger, fear, or guilt, it's more useful to see them as temporary visitors. Think of emotions as clouds passing through the sky. They appear, but they are not the sky itself. You can practice this with a technique called emotional mindfulness, where you focus on the sensation without judgment, simply accepting that it is present. This practice reduces the intensity of the emotion and helps you act more rationally. Mario Alonso Puig, a renowned doctor and communicator, recommends detaching from negative emotions through regular training. He suggests activities like daily meditation and practicing gratitude, which create a kind of protective barrier against the impact of emotions like anger and fear. Try starting the day by writing down 3 things you are grateful for. It can be something simple, like the sun shining or a hot cup of coffee. It may seem trivial, but over time it changes the way you face daily challenges. Moreover, training the mind to deal with emotions is like sharpening a sword. It's an ongoing process, and like any skill, it can improve over time. A practical example? Do an emotional detox weekly, where you distance yourself from everything that might trigger anger or fear, such as social media or tense conversations. Use this time to reconnect with things that bring you joy and peace, whether it's a walk in nature or listening to your favorite music. But it's not just about avoiding emotions, it's also about facing them bravely and consciously. When anger arises, for instance, ask yourself, why am I really angry? What is this anger trying to show me? Often, the answer reveals deeper issues, such as frustrations or unmet expectations. The same goes for fear. By questioning it, you can not only discover the reasons for its emergence, but also find solutions to overcome it. A useful practice in this process is positive self-talk. When a negative emotion appears, instead of criticizing or judging yourself, use affirmations like, "This is just a phase," or "I'm stronger than this." It may sound overly simple, but the cumulative impact of this kind of thinking is enormous. You start training your mind to focus on what can be controlled, instead of getting lost in what is beyond your reach. Emotional training is not an isolated process, but rather part of a broader path of self-awareness and growth. And this is where genuine love enters as the next essential step to transform the way we deal with our emotions. Love is often described as the cure for many ills, and when it comes to emotions like fear, that statement couldn't be more accurate. Genuine love, the kind that isn't tied to expectations or conditions, is capable of dissipating tension and anxiety. Imagine someone who, in the midst of a crisis, chooses to respond with compassion instead of anger. It's not a magical solution, but it's incredibly effective. The key is cultivating love from the inside out, starting with self-love, something many neglect in pursuit of external acceptance. This type of love is different from romantic or possessive love. It doesn't depend on what the other person does or doesn't do, nor on what you receive in return. Think of how a mother cares for a sick child, even when she's exhausted. That's selfless love. Cultivating this mindset toward yourself and others can transform even the most challenging situations. A useful practice is loving kindness meditation, which involves sincerely wishing well to everyone, including those who have hurt you. Love is also a powerful antidote to fear because it activates the part of the brain associated with pleasure and safety rather than danger and threat. When you truly love, there's no room for fear to take root. Imagine someone who enters a new environment with an attitude of openness and acceptance, instead of distrust and insecurity. This not only improves how that person feels, but also positively affects those around them, creating a cycle of good emotions. But how to apply this concept in everyday life? Start with small acts of kindness, like smiling at a stranger or offering a word of support to a colleague. These are simple gestures, but they help build a more loving mindset. Another practical exercise is to write a letter to yourself, expressing love and gratitude for all your achievements and challenges overcome. It may sound silly, but it's incredibly transformative, as it reinforces inner worth and acceptance. When we speak of love as an antidote, we're also talking about forgiveness, both for others and for yourself. Forgiving is about releasing the weight that prevents love from flowing freely. If there are lingering resentments, a powerful exercise is to visualize the person who caused you pain and mentally say, "I release you and release myself." It's not easy, of course, but it brings a peace that nothing else can provide. Love also helps redefine the meaning of success and fulfillment. Instead of measuring life by external achievements, you can start valuing true connections and moments of genuine joy. Imagine someone who stops chasing constant approval from others and instead begins nurturing deeper and more meaningful relationships. That's what it means to live with an open heart, without being guided by fear. Love, as a universal antidote, is just part of the process of emotional healing. To maintain this capacity to love and care for yourself, it's also necessary to develop self-compassion and self-care, which will be our next points of reflection. Self-compassion is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, it's an act of courage. It involves the ability to acknowledge your own pains and difficulties without judgment, treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. Imagine someone who, after making a mistake, instead of beating themselves up, chooses to learn and move forward. That's how self-compassion manifests. It's accepting that mistakes are part of the growth process. To start, practice speaking to yourself positively. Try phrases like, "It's okay, you tried and you'll try again." Self-care is the practice of keeping body and mind in balance, and it goes far beyond a simple spa day. It involves daily actions that promote well-being, such as getting enough sleep, eating healthily, and taking time for yourself. A practical example is creating a morning routine that includes a few minutes of silence, a short walk, or even reading a chapter of an inspiring book. The important thing is to make a commitment to yourself, showing that you are worthy of that care. But let's be clear, self-care is not selfishness. Often people feel guilty when prioritizing their own needs, believing they're neglecting others. The truth is, taking care of yourself allows you to be more present and available for others. Imagine a cup that only overflows when it's full. You need to fill your own cup before you can offer anything of value to others. Set healthy boundaries, knowing when to say no without feeling guilty. The practice of self-compassion and self-care is not limited to moments of crisis. It's a conscious and continuous choice. An example is setting aside a self-care day every week, where you only do things that bring you joy and peace. It could be watching a movie, spending time with family, or simply resting without guilt. The important thing is that these activities are part of a routine, not an exception. After all, consistency is what turns habits into life changes. Self-compassion also involves forgiving yourself for the failures and setbacks along the way. It's not about being lenient with your mistakes, but about recognizing them as part of learning. A simple exercise is to write down 3 things you would like to forgive yourself for, such as past mistakes or impulsive actions. Reading these words aloud helps release the emotional burden and make room for inner healing. Practicing self-care and self-compassion also strengthens resilience, enabling you to better cope with life's challenges. When you care for and accept yourself, the ability to overcome obstacles becomes more natural. Imagine someone who, instead of being shaken by every little setback, can see the situation from a broader perspective, focusing on the solution rather than the problem. That's the true strength that comes from self-care. This foundation of self-care and self-compassion lays the groundwork for an even more important concept: resilience. After all, it's the ability to rise after each fall that defines success in life, as we'll explore next. Resilience is the ability to get back up, even after the toughest moments. It's not something you're born with, but rather a skill that develops over time. Imagine someone who suddenly loses their job. Instead of drowning in frustration, this person uses the situation as a springboard to seek new opportunities. This learning mindset is the essence of resilience. A practical way to develop it is to adopt a lifelong learner attitude, always looking for what you can learn, even from the most bitter defeats. Failure is an inevitable part of the growth process, but resilience allows you to face it without excessive self-criticism. Instead of punishing yourself for not reaching your desired goal, ask yourself, what can I improve next time? This mindset avoids the feeling of defeat and creates a more strategic and realistic approach to challenges. A practical example is keeping a resilience journal, where you record both successes and failures and reflect on the lessons from each. This helps to build a clearer understanding of yourself and your capabilities. Resilience doesn't mean being tough or impenetrable, but rather having mental flexibility. Think of bamboo that bends with the wind but doesn't break. This ability to adapt is what makes someone truly resilient. In crisis situations, such as a health problem or a significant loss, this flexibility allows not only survival, but also the discovery of new paths and solutions. A practical exercise is to list possible scenarios for problems you're facing, and then identify the best response for each one. Resilience also involves accepting circumstances as they are, without trying to change them by force. This doesn't mean conforming, but rather knowing when to pick your battles. Imagine an athlete who, after an injury, needs to redirect their efforts toward rehabilitation instead of insisting on continuing to compete. This acceptance opens space for smarter planning and more efficient focus on long-term goals. To practice this, try using the technique of radical acceptance, where you acknowledge what cannot be changed and redirect your energy to what is within your reach. A key part of resilience is the ability to maintain hope, even in the darkest moments. Hope is like an anchor that keeps the mind stable during life's storms. A practical way to cultivate it is to create a vision board with images and words that represent your dreams and goals. This serves as a constant reminder that, even when everything seems to be falling apart, there's still something worth fighting for. In addition, resilience is strengthened by social support. Surrounding yourself with people who understand your challenges and offer genuine support is crucial to overcoming tough moments. Imagine someone who, going through a divorce, relies on close friends who offer practical advice and a shoulder to cry on. Having this support network makes all the difference in the journey of overcoming. If you don't have this kind of support yet, consider joining interest groups or even therapy as a way to build more meaningful relationships. Resilience is the pillar that supports all the other emotional skills we've discussed so far, and when well developed, it creates a continuous cycle of growth and learning. After all, overcoming adversity is just the beginning. The true challenge is applying those lessons in daily life to achieve more complete well-being. Anger is not just an intense emotion. It can also have significant impacts on the body. Who hasn't felt their heart race or their hands tremble in a moment of fury? This happens because anger activates the body's fight or flight system, releasing a surge of adrenaline and other stress hormones. The immediate effect is increased blood pressure and heart rate, which can lead to more serious problems like heart attacks or even strokes. To avoid reaching this point, it's essential to find ways to release this energy in a healthy way, such as engaging in high-intensity sports or practicing deep breathing exercises. However, it's not just the heart that suffers from anger. It can also affect other organs, such as the stomach, causing digestive problems and ulcers. When you're angry, the body reduces blood flow to the digestive system, prioritizing the muscles and brain. This can result in stomach aches, reflux, and other conditions related to the gastrointestinal system. To minimize these effects, it's recommended to maintain a balanced diet and avoid consuming irritating substances, such as caffeine and alcohol, during moments of high stress. Repressed anger, on the other hand, can be even more dangerous, as its effects are cumulative and silent. When anger isn't expressed or resolved, it can manifest in chronic ways, contributing to conditions like hypertension, insomnia, and frequent headaches. Imagine a pressure cooker that's never relieved. Eventually, it explodes. To avoid this internal explosion, it's essential to practice emotional release techniques, such as writing about what's bothering you or talking to someone you trust about accumulated feelings. Another worrying effect of anger is its impact on the immune system. Studies show that frequent episodes of anger can weaken the immune system, making the body more susceptible to illnesses, from colds to more severe conditions. This happens because constant stress alters the body's chemical balance, such as cortisol levels, reducing the immune system's ability to fight infections. To protect immune health, it's important to adopt well-being practices, such as meditation, yoga, or even taking walks outdoors. Mental health is also directly impacted by anger, as this emotion is often linked to other emotional problems, such as anxiety and depression. When someone is stuck in a cycle of anger, it's common for the mind to become increasingly closed off to solutions and more focused on problems. This creates an internal environment of negativity and hopelessness, which can be difficult to overcome. To break this cycle, it's necessary to develop a more open mindset, using techniques like positive thinking and cognitive restructuring. The relationship between anger and relationships is equally significant. When anger is constant, it affects not only the person feeling it, but also those around them. Personal and professional relationships can suffer, leading to conflicts, poor communication, and even irreversible breakups. To maintain healthy relationships, it's crucial to learn how to communicate assertively, expressing what's bothering you without aggression. Empathy also plays an important role, allowing people to understand others' perspectives, even in moments of anger. Understanding the physical consequences of anger is just one aspect of emotional control. As you gain a deeper understanding of its effects, it becomes clearer that love and self-compassion serve as natural antidotes. There's another video on the screen waiting for you, with more tips to deepen your emotional transformation. Don't stop here, keep watching and evolving. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Activate notifications so you don't miss the next life-changing content. Oh, and before wrapping up, remember the Cineboost I mentioned? If you want to improve focus, energy, and reduce anxiety, check out the pinned comment. You just have to pay for shipping.